All right, hello out there in Cyberland. Jennifer Sparks here. And I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of things that are, I think, important conversations to have. And taking a look at two topics that I want to talk about today are fluoride and vaccines. And let's see how the censorship goes. I'm very excited about the recent confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to HHS. So I'm so happy that finally we can have these conversations in the open. Dare I put the word vaccines in the headline of my post? I'm currently now streaming on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, I believe too. Let me just check over here. No, it didn't get, oh no, Instagram's failing to connect to stream. It's not on Instagram right now, but anyway, Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube currently. So I hopefully don't get my YouTube channel taken away again, that I just got back after 3 years of having it completely censored for me. But I talk about that all the time. I want to jump right into it. Let's take a look at this recent video that I want to share with you. Now, I used to be a huge Elizabeth Warren fan. I was a big supporter of hers a bunch of years ago. So for me right now, looking at this stage that we're looking at is just wild to me. And it's always been really kind of crazy to me with Bobby Kennedy, how he's been totally rejected by Democrats. He was voted into HHS totally partisan. Well, no, there was a few people that on the Democratic side that did vote for him. So that and then there was a couple of Republicans that didn't. But it was mostly a very partisan vote where the majority of Democrats voted no and the majority of Republicans voted yes. So I was a huge Elizabeth Warren fan. I absolutely loved her. I've read a couple of her books. I was so excited when she was going to run that first time she was going to run, but she didn't. Yeah, things started to change. So looking at her now, the way she's totally stumping for bad science, because we're going to take a look. So let's take a look at this video. She's talking right now about fluoride. And there was a recent major lawsuit that was won against the EPA about fluoride, where the judge ruled that it is, there's a neurotoxin. There's neurotoxical effects in fluoride. Let's take a listen to what Elizabeth Warren has to say, and I have some more stuff that I'd like to share with you. So here we go. Let's pull her up and live in real time. Here we go. Wrong screen. Hold on a second. I can't make excuses for myself when I have my glasses. Okay, hopefully she works and I work and we all work. Here we go. Elizabeth Warren.
Right now, millions of Americans are sitting down for dinner with their kids. And I hope we just think for a minute about what RFK Jr.'s plans would mean for them. Will their teeth decay because Kennedy took fluoride out of the water based on some conspiracy theory? Will they have to worry about getting measles at school because Kennedy is spreading anti-vax conspiracies on government letterhead? Will parents have to risk their kids getting polio and maybe dying by sending them to daycare because Kennedy used his HHS rules to open the door to a flood of bogus lawsuits that force manufacturers to pull the vaccines? Right now, millions of Americans are sitting down for dinner with their kids.
Hold on a second, guys. Sorry about that. So there you have it. There's Elizabeth Warren, and she's right there on the House floor, the Senate floor, and she is. I can't believe they're always using the same language, and it really just drives me bananas. These conspiracy theories, these anti-vax. This anti-vax, these conspiracy theories, all this nonsense. You know what? We have to have a serious conversation here. And I think term limits are really important. And I said this the other day. Maybe Elizabeth Warren started off with good intentions and she's just been corrupted by being in government for so very long. So, term limits, that's a whole nother topic, but I really think we should push for that. We, the people, should push for term limits. I think everybody could agree, and this is not a partisan issue at all, that we should have term limits. Because what I want to talk with you about right now is the science. I have a little bit of a video that I want to play from you that was by the journalist Derek Brose, who's absolutely excellent, does great work, and he writes for The Last American Vagabond, and he writes for himself. So this is the Fluoride Action Network that I'm going to share with you right now. Hold on while I get that. There we go. So this is the EPA, this is the Fluoride Action Network, and this is a great resource, and this has been following the fluoride lawsuit. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this, just so you get an understanding, if you haven't heard about this before, because the mainstream, which should be covering this is a lawsuit, this happened. Okay, so the EPA was sued. First, the EPA was petitioned. In 2016, the EPA was petitioned by a group of citizens and nonprofit organizations. So they petitioned the EPA. The EPA dismissed the petition. So the group of citizens and the nonprofit organizations gathered up a lot and they sued. So this has been going on for a long time. And it's been a long court battle. And I'm going to take you right over, I don't want to have me spinning to the end of the page to the lawsuit. It's a long history. I guess we could take a brief look. Let's take a brief look. I won't spin through it too fast. But as you can see, this has been going on. They had the petition. This is in 2017. And the Fluoride Action Network, Food and Water Watch, Moms Against Fluoridation, as well as several individuals served the EPA with a petition. Let's see how long. Let's see if we can take a quick peek at this video. Here we go.
What you're looking at here is over 300 scientific reports on fluoride's neurotoxicity, both animal and human studies, representing the work of literally hundreds of scientists from dozens of countries.
Current exposures that U.S. kids are getting are somewhere between 5 and 10 times above what a safe level ought to be. So it's a pretty good bet that some U.S. kids have suffered loss of IQ points that they didn't have to lose. As an ex-president of the union and a charter member of the union and a 27-year veteran of EPA, I can say that this is something that EPA has got to come to grips with now. The stalling game is now over, starting today.
So that was the Fluoride Action petition. That was a video from, let me get out of here and get back over to here. So that was done for citizens petition urges EPA to end the water fluoridation. And so that was where it began, as you can see, and they delivered that. And so now we are in 2024, well, 2025 currently, but in 2024, a major victory was won, and a judge, it went on for a long time. And this is a great resource, a website, and I'm going to put those notes in my Substack. They're currently up on Facebook right now, is the only streaming platform. I have the notes up, but it will be up on Substack. But you can look this up at fluoridealert.org is the website URL where you can find all this information yourself. So this is when somebody says, like Elizabeth Warren says, oh, conspiracy theories, oh, spreading that. This is not a conspiracy. This lawsuit, hello, is not a conspiracy theory. I am so sick of this type of language and this nonsense being spit out by these legislators who are supposed to represent the people. We pay enough money in taxes to have these people representing us. Where is the representation here? And really, like, not taking some, autocratic side and looking at the science. Talk about science. You talk about science, you talk about information, what is the truth and what is, this conspiracy theory. So there is a lawsuit that happened that was filed by a group of citizens and some nonprofit organizations to get fluoride out of water. They sued the EPA and they won. So what is really shocking to me is that we still have, and this has become a partisan issue, where during RFK's nomination for HHS, it kept being said by a lot of different political leaders, like Elizabeth Warren, that RFK is going to take all the fluoride out of water. Oh my! The audacity to take all the fluoride out of water. First of all, let's get back into what states' rights are. And I believe in this wholeheartedly. Nobody's going to come take your fluoride right now. I can't say that for your local municipality. Once presented with the evidence and enough citizen action happens, that municipalities and cities will just not start agreeing to take the fluoride out of the water. It's not necessary. Europe doesn't do this. I believe we're the only country that fluoridates its people. There could be another obscure country out there, but Europe's certainly not involved in fluoridation. I don't know what the Chinese are doing. They surveil their people, and maybe they put fluoride in the water too, but that is definitely an American thing, and that's all ours. Even though for years there has been evidence, scientific evidence, that fluoride in the water is not a good thing. So let me take you back over here to this article by Derek Broze, which is a great article. Derek Broze is a wonderful journalist. Or this is an interview, sorry, not an article. I'm going to take you down to here. So they won on January 31st to February 20th, 2024, the second trial and this was filed under the Toxic Substance Control Act. Okay, so the EPA was sued under the Toxic Substance Control Act. And so this went on from 2016 up until just recently, where it was ruled that against the EPA. And there's great information on the fluoridealert.org website, which is where I'm at, where I'm showing you this. This is the attorney who's now joined Siri and Glimstad and is working with ICANN. And this is really exciting. So Maha is empowered with some great attorneys and some, real positive, not positive, but very clear science. Science isn't positive or negative, it just is. I guess our emotions to it as either positive or negative. The science, when we just have it objectively there to look at what is this? What is fluoride in the water doing? And let's take a look. Here's a scientist. This is Derek Broze, interviewed Dr. Who. Or HU, I'm not sure how you say that correctly, but actually he introduces himself. Let me back this up a little bit. So here we go. So he's going to introduce himself.
My name's Howard Hu. I'm a physician trained in internal medicine and occupational medicine and epidemiology. My current position is a professor and chairman of the Department of Population and Public Health Sciences at the Keck School of Medicine of the University of Southern California.
And today you testified in the first day of the second phase of the fluoride lawsuit. Could you briefly summarize some of the main points of what you were called in to testify about?
Sure. My testimony, which was elicited by the plaintiff's counsel and then cross-examined by the defense counsel, related to the research that's been done on fluoride and neurobehavioral development conducted by my research group, which was started some years ago and that resulted in some of the initial epidemiologic findings that used a certain sort of rigorous methodology to try to understand impacts. And I was also questioned about some of the research my colleagues have done in Canada and also some scientists in Spain.
From your professional and personal perspective, do you feel your testimony went well today? You're stating of the facts and the court hearing them, the judge's curiosity, those sort of things?
Absolutely. So I think the judge is real smart and he is trying to understand the science. Both sides of the litigation were quite rigorous in their examination of my testimony, and I was glad that we could get into the facts and the science and the interpretation of the science, and I have some confidence that the judge will assimilate this information and come up with the best opinion at the end.
In your professional opinion, is it fair to say that the conclusions of the National Toxicology Program, that there is an association between higher fluoride exposure and lower IQ in children, is accurate?
Yes. I would say that, in my view, the evidence is quite persuasive, that there is a negative impact of fluoride exposure on the neurodevelopment of children, particularly the research that's been coming out in prenatal exposure.
This topic that we're discussing and that's at stake here is one of those sort of things that gets labeled conspiracy theory. That if somebody talks, like for example, me as a journalist, you see there's no media here. There's been no mainstream media reporting. I'm an independent journalist. I've followed this topic for about 10, 12 years now, so I care deeply about it. But if you take this story into any mainstream publication, they typically laugh you out of the room, and I'm sure there's similar things maybe in the scientific realm. We're living in a time where people are being told there's an anti-science mentality, that we don't want to listen to the scientists, and yet we're dealing with this situation I just outlined, that following the science leads to a conclusion that we're told is only crazy people believe. Could you reflect on that a minute?
Sure. Well, the story about fluoride is a complicated one because it's been controversial for decades. And I would freely admit that, 15 years ago, I was not particularly cognizant of the potential health effects of fluoride, and I was aware of some of the controversies surrounding it, but my general impression as a scientist was that there wasn't very much actual scientific evidence to back up some of the assertions that were being made. But this is why, it's so important with all the scientific studies that are being published for scientific bodies at times to take stock, try to figure out, well, what is the totality of the scientific literature telling us? And that's exactly what happened in 2006. A working committee of the National Research Council looked at the totality of evidence and said, well, we can't come to any conclusions, but we're kind of worried and we need more science. And that's precisely when our research team said, we're actually in a really good position to study this. Let's study this. And that was in about 2010. And then flash forward 7 years, we got the research funding, we conducted the study, we published our initial findings, and that's how science progresses, is that you have fits and starts, but there are times when a critical mass of evidence develops, and even if it's not yet conclusive, it then stimulates scientists to go at it further. And of course, this is an issue that has huge implications given the highly prevalent practice of fluoridation of water. And that, I'm just glad that in this country we have the freedom as well as the support from the public through taxpayer dollars and the National Institutes of Health to support this kind of research. Now, of course, the research always gets spun, and we are living a time, particularly with the COVID pandemic, where there's science and the results you have to have a healthy debate about what it means, but then for it to flow into these conspiracy theories is very unhealthy. It's very unfortunate, and I just hope that there are still outlets for scientific communication that are persuasive enough to keep the ball moving forward and affecting policy in the right direction.
So obviously scientists are human beings and are fallible like everybody else, and politics plays a role, even we see in some cases, even if we would like it not to, in the world of science, and I think we're seeing that in the fluoride lawsuit. How can, like myself and say the audience of generally lay people, how can we sort of, I guess, walk through that world where scientists are capable of being pulled to one side or the other, people can be influenced by money or maybe concerns about their career and things like that. How can we sort of maintain a belief in science in that world and, like you said, not fall into maybe beliefs that aren't based in fact, knowing that that scientists can be corrupted like anybody else?
That's a great question. I think, previously at least in my view, it's a little bit easier because sometimes it's like industry, which clearly has an interest in continuing to make a product or something, has a special interest and will promote quote-unquote science to back up their views. In this case, the irony of it is that it's really one branch of public health, which is environmental health, in tension with another branch of public health, dental public health. And that's what makes it especially difficult, I think, for the public to understand. We've got scientists on both sides who are very credible, saying different things and having different opinions. I think the one thing I would say is that this is an issue that certainly has to be seen in the light of the expertise that's important to understand the issue at hand. The issue at hand is not whether fluoride is good for your teeth. There's no question about it. It's great for your teeth. The issue at hand is whether fluoride is not so good for the developing brain. And that cannot be addressed by using dental science. You have to use neurotoxicology, neuroepidemiology, and the kinds of science that I think, my colleagues and others are trying to bear to this problem. And, that I think is the solution. And then you need these uber scientific bodies, as is happening with the National Toxicology Program, to weigh the evidence and then come to a conclusion. And I think that's, as a scientist, I see that as the way forward, but it's a complicated thing to understand for the public. So the best I can do is say science is not just one monolithic thing. There's various disciplines and expertise in science that needs to be brought to bear to define the issue at hand. And that's where I would encourage the public to try to understand, what kinds of science is important, and then try to understand what it's telling us.
Derek, sorry about that. So that was an interview that Derek Brose did, and I'm currently on the Fluoride Alert, fluoridealert.org, which has all the information about the lawsuit that recently was won, that was put together by a group of citizens and some nonprofits and sued the EPA. And you heard what Dr. Hu said, and he talked about Dr. Howe, I'm sorry. Dr. Howe said when he discussed public health, and I want to take you to, this comes out of something in Connecticut, Connecticut. So it's interesting how the people had to fight the government. Okay, so what's interesting with the fluoride lawsuit, fluoridated water is a public health initiative by our government, right? And so in these two portions of the public health, we've got fluoride in our water, and then that the EPA is under that that control. And then we have the public health aspect of for the teeth. So it's just really interesting how this is a battle that was fought against bad public health. That is to me so fascinating, and how Dr. Howe talked about, special interest in science, right? And we see this all the time, and we've been screaming about this all the time, the capture of our governmental agencies by industry. And it takes us back to where I've been talking about this for years now in my own work and my own writing about public-private partnerships. So this is absolutely fascinating. So I wanted to share with you. This was something I saw recently, and I just took a screenshot of it. I'm going to blow it up for you guys so you could just get a better look. And it just correlates so well with what Dr. Howe was talking about with, where we have to really look at this, because so according to Dr. Howe, the science is there supporting that, okay, fluoride on the teeth, that's great for the teeth. And then the science is there that's saying this is terrible for, the brain, for the neurological functioning of the brain, of the body, of your intelligence, and it lowers IQ. We have this evidence now. So it's a really interesting dichotomy that's there in this poll, but ultimately the lawsuit was won. And now what that doesn't mean that water filtrate, the fluoride in the water just automatically comes out. Your dentist is going to stop, doing fluoride treatments. What it means is that people now can go to their local municipality, their cities, and they can say, hey, look at this evidence. The EPA was sued. This is causing, especially in for prenatal. So with pregnant women and babies that haven't even been born yet, it has a very negative effect on the gestating baby in the womb, this fluoride. So, why not at least take it out of the water so you are presented with a choice? If you think that you want to supplement with fluoride, well, then you could go and buy a fluoride supplement and supplement with that. If that's something that you'd want to do. But why put it in the water when we've got this science saying that this is a neurotoxin? And why is the public health, with our own money, our own tax dollars, working against the people and not really listening to the science, like listening to the Dr. Howe's of the world and talking about the science? Why is it that our government now is all about these experts? Who are these experts? What special interests do they have in these companies and these products? Now, there's a whole history of fluoride, and we can get into all that, but I just really wanted to talk about this lawsuit and the fact that, it's not a conspiracy theory like Elizabeth Warren and even my governor, Ned Lamont, or any of these political figures will sit there and say, oh, not that Lamont said that, because I didn't hear that come straight out of his mouth, but I've been hearing it from different Democratic legislators like Elizabeth Warren, Chris Murphy, Blumenthal, whatever. And I've been hearing them say, oh, you just brush all these really serious conversations off and just use this, this jingoism to say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. So I don't have to address this. I don't have to treat this with any, reasonability of debate or discussion of the actual science. You talk about science, right? They talk all the time about the science, the experts. Well, science is never settled. Science is the continuous exploration of things. I mean, there's certain basic facts that we have in life, right? when it comes to concepts and ideas. Like now, one time there was an idea, well, wait, yeah, fluoride could be great. But when you really look at the history of fluoride, you get deep into it. Was fluoride really great, or did they just make a really wonderful marketing campaign? So you can go and check out the fluoride. I'm not going to make that decision or even express my opinion here on that one, but just letting you know that no, this is not a conspiracy theory about fluoride. This court ruling with the EPA that was led by a group of citizens. So the video that I just showed to you of Dr. Howe was filmed and was done by journalist Derek Brose, who's excellent, love his work, support independent journalism. Nobody is talking about this on the mainstream. Nobody wants to discuss this, and I think the most interesting point that we can look at is that the people had to fight their government, and the people won. The judge sided with the people based on science. So this is not a conspiracy theory. Now what goes up with this is that people can take this take this and go and work with their own towns and municipalities and cities and states. Get this to be a statewide action. I would love to see fluoride come out of the water. I don't have a fluoridated water system. I have a water well, thank God. And rumor on the street is, not to get too sidetracked, but Senator Anwar wants in our wells. The state government here in the state of Connecticut wants in our wells. And you know what's really interesting, just as a side note with water, because I got to come in and do a whole series on talking about water, is that there's like now a mapping out all the people who have well water and how the government wants to come in and control your well. But that's a story for another day. Yes, that is in the ethers, So here it is. The people have to fight the government, right? And the government's not really working for the people because they become like Elizabeth Warren, who one time I really did appreciate her, was, she's just totally lost her mind. So let me take you back to here. So I just wanted to get over to this one last part about the fluoride lawsuit and the judgment. So let's take a quick peek. This is the attorney, and let me take you back here. All right, so this is the attorney. Okay, so the judgment on September 24th, 2024, the court ruled on behalf of the Fluoride Action Network and the plaintiffs. A U.S. federal court has now deemed fluoridation an unreasonable risk. Okay? Can I blow this up? I'm going to try to blow this up. Hopefully you guys can see that with me. So, Elizabeth Warren, I'm using her as an example because she just came out. She was on the Senate floor, like right before Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was confirmed, yelling her head off. And you know what? The thing is that drives me crazy. Oh, they talk about all this misinformation. And here she is spewing a bunch of misinformation and trying to dispel the argument, the real argument about, the risks of fluoride being a neurotoxin, an unreasonable risk. So as Warren's up there screaming her head off about this is a conspiracy theory, it's not. None of the mainstream journalists call her out on it. Nobody in the mainstream has really been covering this. Many people don't even know that this lawsuit has been happening for all these years. Maybe you're hearing a little bits about it through like sound bites or whatever that the mainstream might play about this specific lawsuit. And the fact that a federal court has deemed fluoridation an unreasonable risk to the health of children. And the EPA will be forced to regulate it as such. The decision is written very strong in the favor of getting the fluoride out of the water. So the issue before the court is whether the plaintiffs have established a preponderance of evidence that the fluoridation of drinking water at levels in the United States poses an unreasonable risk of injury to health of the public within the meaning of the amended TSCA, and that stands for Toxic Substances Control Act. For the reasons set forth below, the court so finds, specifically, the court finds that fluoridation of water at 0.7 milligrams per liter The level presently considered optimal in the United States poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children. The court finds that there is a reasonable risk of such injury, a risk sufficient to require to the EPA to exchange with regulatory response. One thing the EPA cannot do, however, in the face of this court's findings, is to ignore that risk. Now, it's very convoluted what's going on with the EPA and what's happening. But now that Bobby Kennedy is head of HHS, I have a lot of hope to get fluoride out of the water. And you know what? We live in the United States of America, and we still currently have the ability to be free. And you know what you could do? You could go and you could supplement your water with fluoride. But I will see what happens, because I'm a little confused at how this all is going to go down. I do know that towns and states are taking the fluoride out of the water. What the federal government can do and how much power the federal government actually has over states is another issue. And that's where states' rights are really, really important, always, forever, because you have to have, sometimes the federal government is overreaching, overbearing. Bureaucracy and government, it's enough to drive you absolutely crazy. But this is a good thing that the people won, but we had to fight our own government. We had to fight the federal government and public health, which seems to be a thing that we've been dealing with in this time that we're in. And obviously the government has been failing in public health because we have really sick children. 54% of American children are chronically ill. There's an epidemic of obesity. There's an epidemic of autoimmune disease and all these problems. So public health is an absolute failure at this moment in time. So let's take a look. I wanted to go over here and take another look and talk about the vaccine package inserts, which is another really important topic to discuss, really. This is super important, and we need to talk about. Let's start here. So I've railed about this, and lots of people who are following me already know about this. But this is extremely important. When we have this conversation about vaccines, and I hope that I can actually say this now, because it's about time that we're allowed to have this conversation and not be censored over it. This is how we as a society, in a free society, can have a public debate and look at what is presented to us and make decisions. So in 1986, they passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which indemnified the manufacturers of vaccines because they were facing many lawsuits over the DTaP vaccine, or if that's what they called it, but the pertussis, the diphtheria, the combo vaccine, DTaP, they renamed them all different names. Anyway, they were being sued. The manufacturers were being sued. So the government got involved. Again, the government gets involved. And they passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. This happened in 1986. Since 1986, the schedule of childhood vaccines has exploded. It's like 54 shots of 72 different antigens. Let's just think about this for a minute. You have a little tiny, teeny, beautiful baby born into this world. And I will tell you, as a recent grandparent and seeing this, now in this, it's like ridiculous, the amount of vaccines that they want to give to pregnant women and infants. We need to, back up the bus. And we're going to take a look at these package inserts and talk about the sections of them and talk about what they say about giving these vaccines in pregnancy. And the pregnancy registry, which I've talked about before. And where, we can, bring these up to your doctors. Bring this into the conversation. I am so thankful that Bobby Kennedy is head of HHS. I cannot tell you how happy that makes me, because now we can have this conversation and now we get true informed consent. So this is extremely important. But back to the history of the Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. So you have a product that is now put on the market, because vaccines are a product that is completely and totally liability free, and they set up the vaccine adverse events reporting system. Okay, they set up VAERS, and that's where hardly anybody even knew VAERS existed before 2020. And the COVID, actually, the fact that the government decided to mandate the COVID vaccine on the scale that it did and force all these people to have this vaccine, and adults who never even thought about it before, just thought like, oh yeah, the anti-vaxxers crazy, that's those crazy people. They never would have thought about it before, never had an issue with any of the vaccines. Many people don't. Many people have no issues, have taken vaccines and have had no issues with them. Everybody is built differently. Everybody is built differently. That's why informed consent is so extremely important. Okay, so somebody who maybe never had a negative experience all of a sudden takes the COVID jab and has a really bad negative experience. Now they all of a sudden have a bang-o, and it woke up a lot of people. And the fact that we can't say no to products, because there's all different ways we could get to health. And I think in a good society, we should be open to all pathways to health. And the government absolutely never has a right. The government has no right in your decisions on your own healthcare. We are not wards of the government. I'm not a ward of the government. The government doesn't own me. I know people will argue, oh, we're the government of the United States Corporation, blah, 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 blah. Right? No, but I'm a free sovereign being. My rights are inalienable rights from God. I have God-given rights, as all human beings do. Every human being born on a planet has God-given rights, to breathe the air, to live a life, to roam the earth freely, and those kinds of things. So we all are endowed with this gift of life from God, not government. So why is the government getting involved in our major health decisions? From fluoridating our water with what a judge has ruled, a federal court has ruled in the year 2024, has ruled that the fluoridation of water is too big a risk. And EPA has to acknowledge that. So the people had to sue their own government to finally get to this point. And how long have we been fluoridating the water for? I think was it after World War II? Anyway, we weren't going to get into the whole history of fluoridation in water, but it's a fascinating one, by the way. So back to the vaccine conversation. So the 1986 Vaccine Childhood Injury Act indemnified all of these manufacturers, and then we have a wild west of a vaccine schedule now where it is just absolutely crazy. The infant schedule, let's take a quick look at that. I'm going to pull that up in my notes for you. So this is the infant schedule. Okay, so here it is. This is the baby schedule. This is just up to, it goes up to all here we are. So most of these vaccines on the childhood schedule are given during the first year of life. And here's like a bunch of them. So from day one, brand new. So day one, they're giving the hepatitis B vaccine, which was discussed a lot during Robert Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation hearing with Senator Cassidy, who ended up voting. That was profound. I'm so thankful he did that, because we are here today, thankfully, because that doctor took a moment to actually listen. And now we're having a real dialogue and a real discussion. And this is so extremely important. So hepatitis B has been given to babies since after the passage of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. So the schedule started to explode as manufacturers walked into a market. Let's take a second to think about this. Vaccine manufacturers walk into a market with total indemnity to problems with their products. They walk into this market. Then they walk into this market with this total, don't have to take any responsibility for their product or any of the injuries or anything that could possibly happen to people taking the product, which is children in this case, mostly children. Adults too, because adults can be injured by these, and adults do take some of the childhood vaccines. Vaccines that are not on a childhood schedule, like Zostafax and Synagrit, if I'm saying that correctly. There's 2 vaccines for shingles. Zostafax, which is no longer available on the market. It was quietly taken off the market due to numerous lawsuits, a class action lawsuit. I think GlaxoSmithKline might have produced that. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, people were being injured, adults. So they were able to sue the manufacturers. So that changed course with Zostafax. Now they got Synagrit on there, a new vaccine. And that's also having problems, by the way, because they're live virus, herpes zoster virus vaccines. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. But anything that isn't on the childhood schedule doesn't have this indemnity. Until, of course, COVID came out. And then they had this whole PrEP Act, and they added a lot more to it. And you had rushed vaccines to market with the mRNA injections. We could get into all that another day. mRNA is a whole other realm. So with the infant schedule, so back to the indemnification of the major manufacturers, and I'm going to play a little video of Elizabeth Warren too on that. So with the manufacturers, total indemnification to the vaccines, then so you have a captured market. I don't understand how it is that we could allow for this, where you have this captured market. And what I mean by that is that governments start to mandate these childhood vaccines to attend school, to go to daycare. So this is our children have been on the battlefront of informed consent for a very long time now, and they've suffered on this battlefront for a long time until Bobby Kennedy got appointed to HHS. This is a huge day for lots of moms like me who have been very active, and I'm definitely biased when it comes to the discussion of vaccines. But when I'm looking at the science, what I'm seeing before me, I'm like, how could you not be? And my own experience, like, hey, we need informed consent. That doesn't mean that I'm anti anything. It just means that I want informed consent. I don't want anyone to tell me what to eat, what to drink, and what to inject into my body. I make those decisions myself. The government needs to stay in its lane. I am not its subject. That we don't live in a time where we're under the king and its court. Even though we're falling more and more into this autocratic state where the government, we had to fight the EPA to get fluoride out of the water. And now we're going to have to fight the government to make informed consent be, this is the battle cry. Do not tell me what I have to put in my body. And when a mother goes into a hospital or a birthing center to give birth, no one should be pressuring her or threatening to call the Department of Children and Families or Social Services because she does not want the hepatitis V vaccine, especially knowing that every woman is tested for hepatitis B. The only time I think it would be, or the only time any medical person who's read through the science is if somebody was positive for it. Infants aren't going to be subjected to hepatitis B. It's caught through sexual activity and intravenous drug use. They're just not going to come in contact with that, but yet they give this to every infant in the country on day one and pressure you. And now they've just added the RSV vaccine that was only put on the market. Let's take a look at this. Let's go to a package insert. Oops, they took that one down. They must have changed. They changed things up on me. That was an older link. I'll take you to a different one. Let's go. We'll take a look at the RSV vaccine. That was an older link. But they so the RSV vaccine for infants and seniors and whomever they're giving it to came out onto the market just last July. So I'm looking at this and I'm having experience with a new baby in our family and going through this recently and watching my brave daughter tell these people, no, I don't want that. They wanted to give her a whole host of vaccines as a pregnant, which is so, quite honestly, shocking. But the RSV, they wanted to vaccinate her, the pregnant mom, with the vaccine, and then they wanted to vaccinate the infant. And the pressure, oh, they won't be able to go to school. We have vaccines are safe and effective, and we follow the science. And here it is, this baby just was born. This baby is just born. And it doesn't even get to live 24 hours on the planet Earth and breathe the oxygen that's newly entering this little infant's precious lungs. Is just born, and you've got these like people twisting your arm to do this. You have to be really strong and firm to say no. And how many moms in the past just kind of went along with it and didn't know, and then there's problems. And that's going to happen to everybody. It's not going to happen to everybody. Everybody's different. This is where informed consent comes into play, and sound policies that are not wrapped up in this strange public-private partnership relationship with government. Because what I discovered in my state here, in the state of Connecticut, we were working against getting the Gardasil vaccine mandated in 2018. We worked really hard to get the Gardasil mandate taken off. I'm going to play you a short little video on that in just a moment. So we worked really hard to fight the Gardasil vaccine mandate that they're trying to push in 2018 here in the state of Connecticut. And during that process, as I was doing some research about our state, I discovered that the state of Connecticut purchased $9 million worth of the Gardasil vaccine right before they were trying to mandate this shot to our kids. Isn't that a conflict of interest? Shouldn't we be having a real discussion here? Like, how are you putting your public health plan together? What industry is a part of this public-private contract or public-private partnership? And what contracts have been signed with the makers of these liability-free products with your captured audience, mostly our children, subjected to? When we look at it that way, it's insane. And the whole fluoride thing and the vaccine thing, it's like, this is bad public health policy, where we need to have informed consent. We're all different. We are all different. And I think what you decide to do in your doctor's office with your doctor and your children is your personal choice. And those decisions need to be respected. And coercion shouldn't be a part of that conversation. Because when it has to be coercive, where are we? So back over here to these inserts, and I want to try to keep the show within a time frame, and I'm working on that because I don't want it to go over an hour, but this might go a little bit over an hour because I have some really great videos I'd like to share with you that I've collected over the years in this battle for informed consent. This is a huge time. This is why it is really important now that everyone in the MAHA movement stays very diligent and active and keep having these conversations. Make these conversations happen. Demand that we are not censored. Demand that these mainstream organizations that say they're producing news to actually produce the news. Because I had asked in the past, I have tried to work with news agencies where I was smeared by somebody in the industry, which was just totally upsetting because I worked in radio for a really long time and I agreed to a radio interview. And I should know better, but I wanted to have this conversation. This was back in 2018, and I forget, that was like the Capitol Report or something like that. It was like a radio podcast, and it was done through the Hartford Courant. I can't recall exactly. It was in 2018 what the name of the podcast was, but I knew one of the producers back in my day in media, in school. Well, but after school. This is post-school, but we both have training in broadcast media. And I agreed to an interview. And I was talking about the vaccine package inserts, which I've been talking about for years now. And I'm so glad that now that Bobby Kennedy is in HHS, we are having a conversation about vaccine package inserts. So we were talking about the MMR vaccine, and I was talking about the vaccine package inserts, and they cut up the whole conversation, and they just made me sound like they just took everything out of whack. And, I was talking about the aborted fetal cells in vaccines, and they, instead of them having me list, it was just WI38, and there's another one, MRC35. There's a bunch of them. And instead of having just presenting the conversation, they twisted it. So it's been a very frustrating battle. And now finally, this conversation is now mainstream. We need to force the conversation to continue to happen and call them out. There's no settled science here. Let's take a look at the science. Let's take a look at the science. This is the science on vaccines. Here you go. Here you have it. Vaccines licensed for use in the United States of America. Here we are. These are all of them. Let's take a peek at the RSV vaccine. There's a whole bunch. These are the hepatitis ones. Okay, let's go to the recombinant hepatitis B, because that one's been really talked about quite a bit. We've been hearing a lot about the hepatitis B. Now, hepatitis B, like I said, came onto the market after the 1986 Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, where our children are a captured market, you see? Because they're going to say, oh, these shots are now required to get into daycare and school. That's what they say. They say it now. It is like a script that they follow, and they really push it hard to women who are just having a baby. It's insane. It's insane. So here it is. This is the recombinant hepatitis B vaccine. This is given to babies. And this is the vaccine package insert. Here is the science, right? So every biologic, which is a vaccine that is put on the market today, must put together this vaccine package insert, which we are looking at right now. And here in here, it'll tell you all the things that you want to know about this vaccine, including the contraindications, warning, and precautions, which is interesting, and how anyone with a little newborn baby would know, right, what's going on with the baby if suddenly, this is right up here, right up here. Let's see if I can blow this up for you. This is right at the beginning of the page. This isn't even in, these are the numbers of where everything is listed. Adverse reactions. This is where you're going to find most of your information in section 6. Okay. So you're going to see these are the clinical trials, and it'll tell you how long and how big the clinical trial was. And in this particular vaccine, I believe that they looked at that vaccine for 5 days. The other hepatitis B vaccine on the market for newborns was 4 days. So here it tells you everything. But here's the thing that's really, really concerning. Like, it talks about hypersensitivity to latex. How are you going to know that about a baby that's just born? Or apnea. Apnea in little babies, it says premature babies, and then prevention and management of allergic vaccine reactions. So if you jab this child with the vaccine, and they never want to admit that people have reactions to these vaccines in the first place. So they'll just say, oh, it's a complication from birth or this or that, or nobody ever thinks to look here. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But here on this vaccine package insert, where the science actually is, says that there could be an allergic reaction. So this is the insert. I would go to my government in Hartford. First time I ever heard white privilege. Really makes me just so upset. First time I ever heard the word white privilege was from a politician talking to a group of moms of mixed races. Okay, I'm a mixed race myself. So talking to a group of moms of mixed races, like just the stupidest thing comes out of their mouth, like, we're white privilege, we have nothing better to do than drive up to Hartford, stand around for hours, be treated like garbage by our elected representatives. Here we are, the constituents, and they're just brushing us off, not having a conversation like, why are you here? What's going on? What are your concerns? No, you're an anti-vaxxer and you're white privileged. I'm sure that the black woman with us found that rather comical. Anyway, so instead of having a real conversation and listening to what the people are saying, I'm like, hey, here is the hepatitis B. This is the FDA's package insert that is required for the hepatitis B vaccine manufacturers to get their licensure to sell this vaccine in our country and be able to have this vaccine given to people, babies here in particularly. This is what they have to submit. Can we have a conversation about the vaccine package insert now, please? Wouldn't that be nice? So here, let's go into 6.1. So there's a lot of information here, an absolute lot of information. Contraindications. Do not administer recombinant hepatitis B to individuals with a history of severe allergic or hypersensitivity anaphylaxis after a previous dose. Wait a minute. You're giving this to newborns on the first day of life. How do you know? How does anyone know if this newborn is going to potentially have an anaphylactic reaction? Why is it that this vaccine that's given out to infants on the first day of life, how come the United States has the highest infant mortality rates of 1-day-olds in the world? Why is that? For an industrialized nation like ours? What could that be? Can we ask these questions? Because this is right here in their own insert. It says it right here. Do not administer Recombovax HB to individuals with a history of severe allergic or hypersensitivity reaction, anaphylaxis, after a previous dose of any hepatitis B containing vaccine or to any component of the recombinants. Any component. So here's the science, guys. This is the science. This is the science. So now we need to have a conversation, because you know what, Elizabeth Warren, I'm sorry, you yelling on the Senate floor, and then that becomes a soundbite that CNN or Fox or whatever runs off with, but there's no journalist to say, hey, wait a minute. Hello? Can I ask a few questions about these conspiracy theories and the settled science? Because here is your settled science. How is any little baby going to apnea in premature infants? Does anybody ever discuss this? I would love to know if any moms are out there who've had preemies, if the doctor just came in and said your baby needs to get this hepatitis B shot, and ever discusses with you 5.2 of the vaccine package insert, where it says apnea on premature infants. Apnea following intramuscular vaccination has been observed in some infants born prematurely. Decisions about when to administer the intramuscular vaccine, including recombinant HB to infants born prematurely, should be based on consideration of the individual infant's medical status and the potential benefits and possible risks. This is just banana stuff, guys. It really is. So here's the clinical trial. And this is where it's wild. Look at this. Let's look. Here we are. Anyone could go to the FDA's website. And now I don't have to worry that they're going to try to play games with the links. Although the package inserts have been up there forever, even though moms like me have been screaming about it for years in public testimony to our legislative body, where we're just brushed off and called anti-vaxxers and ignored until Bobby Kennedy came around and tried to make this conversation happen. He came to all of our states. There are so many pictures of him all over the place with all kinds of different people, especially mothers. That's what's so amazing to me. A grassroots movement led by women, moms. Go mamas. Mamas, you are so beautiful. It is a pleasure to stand among you. I love you. Moms, maha moms. God bless you. Because we were able to finally have a voice at the table when it comes to informed consent and these vaccine package inserts that we've been screaming about for years. Because let me tell you something. You know who becomes a really good expert? A mom with an injured child. A mom with an injured child is going to do everything in her power to find out what happened. To find everything in her power to find out how she can heal her precious child. It's going to be the focus of her life. So after years and years since 1986, and all of these constant array of products being added continuously over the years and added up over the years, and all these injuries that have happened, and honestly, with the 1986 vaccine, the Vaccine Injury Act, and the VAERS, which came in, which is the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, came into existence. Nobody really knew about it till after COVID. I said that earlier in my podcast. Nobody really knew about that till after COVID. Well, the irony is that VAERS has paid out through government tribunals. Here we go again, where the government is all tangled up in this public health stuff. And who pays the price? The people. And who has to change it? The people. What is MAHA? MAHA is the people. And thank God that this is the time that we're in, where we're finally got a seat at the table, finally, after all of this work and constant vigilance and never giving up, which is amazing. It's absolutely, truly amazing to be alive at this time where we can really change the tides and have true informed consent and talk about what is in these clinical trials as I share this with you. This is insanity to me. I'm going to highlight it so you guys can see it. I just had the sentence in front of my face. Lost it. Where are we? Okay. And there are 3 clinical trials, 434 doses of recombinant hepatitis B, 5 mcgs were administered to 147 healthy infants up to 10 years of age who were monitored. Look, okay? Here we are. They were administered 147 healthy infants up to 10 years of age were monitored for 5 days after each dose. 5 days. This is right on the FDA. Right there. You could see it. I'm pointing my finger like as if you could see it there. Let me put my pointer there. My mousey. Here we go. FDA government. FDA.gov. This is for hepatitis B. So that's just one. And we could really get into a whole bunch of them. But one of the other ones that I'd like to get into, and I could get into, I'm probably going to do a whole podcast on the live virus ones, which I don't want to get into all that today because I'm already over an hour into an hour and 10 minutes, and I don't want to do that today. But I want to share with you a couple of videos and photographs of what MAHA, in my experience, has been. And these are pretty cool. So I'm going to pull this up for you guys. Hold on a second while I get that up for you. So one of the most amazing things is the tenacity, the not willing to quit that I've seen on this journey to medical freedom and not being listened to for so long. And fighting for these inalienable rights. Like I said, our children are on the forefront of this battle. From the fluoride battle, which we finally won in court. Finally, the EPA can't ignore it anymore. Same thing's going to happen with vaccines. Informed consent is a human right. That doesn't mean they're going to abolish vaccines. Look, let's make them healthier, safer, more transparent. And let's do this too, please, before somebody tries to call me controlled opposition. Look. Nobody should ever be mandated to take any product on the market, period. Nobody should ever be coerced to take anything on the market, period. But I also understand we are a diversified group of people who have different ideas on the pathway to health. Let adults be adults and make personal decisions in your pediatrician's office, your doctor's office, and you make those decisions with informed consent, real informed consent. Because I'm not going to give in to this banter, this scare tactics by people like Elizabeth Warren screaming her head off about standing up for vaccine manufacturers. Oh my God, Bobby Kennedy needs to stop suing the poor Merck for its toxic Gardasil vaccine has harmed and injured more people. And there's a total monopoly on this vaccine, as most are. There's many vaccines that have total monopoly. And anyway, so I wanted to share this short video of what this is. Rita Palma, And this is in Connecticut. So Rita is in New York, and people know her or don't know her, but great person who's been an advocate for medical freedom for quite a while. They came up to Connecticut as we were fighting for the ability to keep our religious exemption. Currently in the state of Connecticut, there is a medical exemption and it is very hard to get. And there are many families that are in dire straits over this. And it is absolutely awful. I have more moms reaching out to me, asking me what they can do in the state of Connecticut to either get their child into a daycare or to a public school, but they don't want to do the vaccine. They have an older child who has had an injury. How and what can they do? There are no doctors that are willing to write medical exemptions, even though the state of Connecticut had acknowledged that vaccines and the association between autoimmune disease, they acknowledged it. I have it on video of them acknowledging it, and it's also written into the language of the law that they passed. Though within that law that they passed, they also put language that they can tweak it and do this and do that with it. So ultimately what has happened is the decision, major healthcare decisions are taken away from the parents and given to the state. And our children are on the battleground of this. And in the state of Connecticut, we like to think we're so forward thinking, right? Well, in the state of Connecticut, you cannot put your child in a daycare unless that child has a flu shot and a whole vaccine schedule. Okay, that's daycare. In the school system, the flu shot is not mandated. Why? Because activists fought really hard to keep at least the flu shot off the public school mandate. See how wacky it is? Is it really about public health as we are seeing now? Is it? Or is it about a strange relationship with industry and behind these closed doors in the guise of public-private partnerships and government contracts that we never really ever get to see? So here we are. The government decides these things. So parents who have such a hard time, who have to, I know many of them, and it's so upsetting to see. Some have left the state of Connecticut, okay? Some are trying to do a delayed schedule. Some have found clever ways around these things. In California, they found very clever ways around it. So there are 4 states in the country right now that do not have proper exemptions from these mandated products. Connecticut, California, Maine, and New York. Recently, Mississippi, thanks to the work of Aaron Siri, have gotten Mississippi to rescind their so now they can have an exemption, a religious exemption to vaccines. So they let's not rescind the law. I guess they created the law, whatever. You can now have a religious exemption to a vaccine in the state of Mississippi, who had basically abolished that right since like 1950. So it was like a long time that that state was like that. And then West Virginia, the first thing the new governor did was not only reinstate a vaccine religious exemption, but also included a philosophical exemption, just to give it really extra padding there. So in the state of Connecticut, we don't have those rights. I wanted to play you this really powerful video that I captured of an event up in Hartford, Connecticut. It was called Black Lives Interrupted, and there's a lot to be discussed with that. And this is a video of that event. This is Rita Palma talking. Hold on while I pull this up, and I'm going to get you... See if I can blow this up. I'm going to blow this up for you. Hold on, live in real time. Here we go. Sorry about that. Hold on while I get that video back up. I apologize. So let me just go right back in here. Hold on a second while I find that back in here. I totally lost that video. Live in real time, guys. I apologize. And I didn't mean to press that button. Where is... I need to totally go through my files and get them better organized. It drives me crazy. Where the heck? There we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. Let me pull up the video again. Here we go. I'm just going to have to leave my screen there. Here we are.
Where the pain that the repeal bill has inflicted upon the people in my state is profound and tragic and sick and twisted. I refer to our legislators who voted for this bill really as monsters. They're inhumane. We don't have a medical exemption. Kids who have IEPs are out on the street. Kids who are medically fragile are out on the street. It's sick. And the minorities, the people who cannot afford to buy a medical exemption, to buy their way out of a problem, are the biggest, most serious victims. So act like it's happened already, and you know, you may get better results than we have. And I'll pray for you all, because it's a horrible thing to go through, and this is an awful session that you face.
Thank you, Brooke.
The other thing too is the mental distress on these children.
Yes.
Because these are kids, like when I think for my kids, and this is what I told them, I'm like, I can never agree to this. My kids have had years of being educated on these vaccines and the dangers of these vaccines. You have a lot of kids who were in that situation, whose family felt strongly about it and educated on them, and then turned around and took those same kids now to go and get these shots that they educated them on the dangers of, you know, so that's really psychologically damaging to these kids.
And the fact that these children can no longer see their friends and play on their sports teams and engage in debates and everything else.
They have been rejected from society, and they feel that profoundly. And New York says, Connecticut says, all the Democrats, oh, we care about kids, we care about kids. Nonsense, you care about kids. If this is what you're doing for absolutely no reason, the religious exemptions, the medical exemptions take up a tiny fraction of the entire population. We're not hurting anybody. And there is absolutely no proof that unvaccinated spread disease, or more specifically, the religious exemptions are spreading disease. That's a bunch of nonsense.
We're already above their false herd immunity threshold.
I was very happy to hide in my closet and, use my religious exemption and, just not use my voice. And I will tell you, it is complete hell. I urge anyone in this state to come running out of the closet as quickly as possible. I have two children who are 11 and 7. I have two girls we lived in a community. I served on the board for 6 years. My daughter was nominated for LISPA, all county, had a lead in the school play. Her school play is Thursday and Friday. She participates in nothing. I had a very happy little girl who has gone for days not eating. I've been in public where people have called my kids dirty. Once you say you're a homeschooler, they assume they know why you're homeschooling. I've been kicked. I was a catechist at my Catholic church, St. Patrick's Church in Huntington, on senior camp. I taught 16 first graders who my daughter should have made her communion with these kids, and we were kicked out of the church.
Shame on them.
A lawyer who's suing New York State, he went to see him and he said the problem with the unvaccinated children is the church is cleaned before they come for religious education, and he can't get it cleaned by the next day. I just wanted to say, please fight so hard, show up. You have to show up. I'd do anything. I would do anything to protect my kids and not have them be it's a terrible feeling as a mother to see your children like this. It really is. It's just.
So, I get really emotional when I think about all the women I've met through the years on this journey. Very emotional. And I wanted to share just a couple more things, and I know I'm so over the time frame that I wanted to go on. But this is a conversation that I've been censored for, ridiculed for, and have had a really hard time getting published or even aired on any type of mainstream publication. And I've written for mainstream newspapers. I'm not new to this game. I have a degree in broadcast journalism. So, I prefer to be independent and working for myself. A shout out and a thank you to all the people who have been supporting me on the Substack. Well, let me not get too far off because I've been going for a while and I want to share with you just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Because I think it's important that we recognize this long fought battle. And I have so many beautiful moments from Maha that are really, really powerful. And this picture, this particular picture, this is in Washington, D.C. And this is, I've got my mom here. And I've got my mom here, over here. There I am. This is Colton Bartlett, his mom. Sorry, her name is slipping my mind right now. And some other friends from Connecticut. And we're standing in front of the Vax bus. And we're each holding children who have died from injuries. And the particular picture that I'm holding is of a little boy whose name is Christopher Bunch. And Christopher died when he was 14 years old. And what struck me so much about Christopher was how much he reminded me of my own son. They're the same age. And how my heart really broke for Christopher's family when they lost him. And how thankful I am for people like Bobby Kennedy who are currently suing Merck. And this show is going to go a little long because I need to piece all these parts together because I want to show you the case that is going to jury trial now. So if I am censored on YouTube, you're censoring information that I could literally... Here it is. I'm talking about things that are actually happening. I was reading the vaccine package insert. I think all medical decisions should be personally made by people with their own practitioner and not by the government, not by your strangers telling you what you should or shouldn't do. But these are personal medical decisions that you should make with your own healthcare practitioner, and that all human beings have a right to medical freedom and informed consent, especially our children who have been on the battleground of informed consent for generations now. Okay? Or decades. So this is the type of thing these moms who have lost so much never gave up. So now we can actually have this conversation, and now is the time to keep having it, keep yelling about it, keep talking about it, never stop. Now is the time not to go back, sit back and relax. Now is the time, because Hawaii is about to introduce to remove the religious exemption. They actually have a bill coming out of the Hawaii right now. Massachusetts just defeated a bill to take away the religious exemption in Massachusetts. And that was just, it didn't go. But it's still there, percolating. There are only 4 states, Connecticut included, that does not allow a proper exemption to vaccines to children. You saw what it was like when Governor Lamont mandated all these people to get these vaccines that didn't want them. I had people reaching out to me. How do I get out of this? What do I do? How do I get a religious exemption? Because adults in the state of Connecticut could still get a religious exemption. I helped more people than I can count get out of taking that COVID jab. Okay? Who are adults who could claim a religious exemption and fight it to either keep their job or to stay at, actually at the university level, it's a no-go, but to keep their jobs. So this is crazy. So the little boy that I'm holding a picture of is Christopher Bunch. Bobby Kennedy, as he told us during this event, this was 2018. This is up in Washington, D.C. That's in front of the Vax bus. And this is in 2018. And he told us at that event that we are going to see class action lawsuits against Gardasil. And we were amazed because Gardasil is on the vaccine schedule. So what that means is if any vaccine that's on the schedule is indemnified from liability. So the VAERS adverse reporting system, which only captures a small amount of injuries, still paid out about $4 billion to people through government tribunals. So we were like, wow. So here we are in 2024, and this is actually happening where there are major lawsuits against Gardasil. So Christopher Bunch, he lost his life, his family, and I have that in my notes. There is a webpage that you can look at. Here, let me pull that up for you guys. Hold on a second. I'll pull that up. So there is a website that you can access, and we'll just take a little peek at that, of Christopher Bunch. These poor, I mean, this was so upsetting to me. Look at
My
this
name is
beautiful
Catherine
kid.
Suazo Roby. I'm a lifelong Californian, and I live in Pasadena, California.
Hold on a second.
I'm here representing my family. I oppose
Live
AB
in real time.
659. My daughter Jennifer
Oh, wait
suffered.
a minute. Why is that still going? Hold on. I'm gonna play her too. That's another Gardasil. That's a Gardasil mom. Her child was injured, and she's really important. So Rabia, and I'm gonna play that in a second. But let me take you back to Christopher. I did not mean to do that. So here's Christopher Bunch. What a beautiful kid, huh? What an absolutely beautiful kid. His story is so tragic. I interviewed both parents in 2019 when I was still on the air at WESU, which is, that was, I guess, pressing the boundaries to actually air this there. But we did, and we had an interview there, and we talked about Christopher and his story. But Christopher was vaccinated against the Gardasil vaccine in June of 2018. By July 31st, he started to have serious adverse events. And so they've listed here the package insert, and we'll take a peek at that too. So, I'm not just looking at a website or whatever, and somebody like Elizabeth Warren is going to be like, oh, this is conspiracy. No, it's not. This little boy did die from that injection. Okay, and now there's major lawsuits against Gardasil that Elizabeth Warren wants Robert F. Kennedy Jr. not to sue them anymore. Well, he's not going to be suing anyone while he's at head of HHS. He's busy at HHS. But when he's not there, he darn well should be suing these manufacturers for injuries. He sure the heck should, and families should be compensated for the misery and the pain and the amount of medical bills that they have had to suffer and endure due to these dysfunctional products that are foisted on our children. Our children, look at this beautiful kid. He's beautiful, and he's gone. He was a football player. He was an athlete. He's gone. So on August 8th, after several attempts to wake Christopher, his mother decided he needed to see a doctor, and they headed to Trinity Medical Center. From there, he's put into the NICU, and he was diagnosed with acute disseminated encephalitis, which is also on the vaccine package insert. This is extremely serious. It's a rare inflammatory demyelinating. So it takes away our nerves, the beauty of our bodies, the beauty of the science that we know and understand the human bodies. So when you're dealing with a demyelinating condition, it is attacking the very core of your existence with inflammation. This poor child didn't have a chance. He died. It is listed in a vaccine package insert. Merck is now being sued for fraud. Bobby Kennedy, in my opinion, is a hero. Merck is now being sued for fraud. Let's just go back here so I can take you to the package insert because they conveniently listed it here for us to go and take a look at. This is the science. Every vaccine package insert is listed the same. It tells you where to look and see everything. Anyone can read, and anyone that can read should read through all these vaccine package inserts and make informed healthcare decisions. And the government has absolutely no right to mandate these products across the board. And the government has no right to advertise these products in schools or on buses or on anything for that matter. No medical products should be advertised to the public. Medical products should not be something that is just treated like any other product, like shampoo or perfume or some inert product that, you see an advertisement for it, drink Coke or Pepsi. That's one thing. But advertising these products, and the government advertises these products all the time. So back to the Gardasil 9 vaccine, that is still on the market today, and children are still being given this product today, even though there is a massive class action lawsuit against Gardasil and all for fraud. There's so many stories over and over, and I'm going to close with the case. We're going to take a look at it. It was actually written in a Fortune magazine. What was it? Forbes? I'm sorry. Or was it Fortune? We'll take a look at that in a second. But here's the way they're always laid out. They tell you where everything is. And they've got a lot here for Gardasil. And one of the other things to note about Gardasil is that through proprietary rights, the makers of Gardasil, which is Merck, that's the only one available in the United States right now, because GlaxoSmithKline had one called Cervix. That one was taken off the market. Nobody wanted it. And so what governments tend to do when there's not, they sign contracts. We don't ever even see these contracts through these public-private partnerships. It's crazy. They sign these contracts and they sell their citizenry. That's what's happening. And the media is not talking about it because the media is being paid for by the very government that is doing these very things. And this is a real problem. And we should be able to have a conversation about this. And I shouldn't be censored. If somebody's going to be like, oh, she's full of it, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. Well, then come over here and let's talk about this, what I'm looking at on the FDA website right here. This package insert. And let's have a real conversation about it. Because none of the legislators up in Harvard ever wanted to talk about the contents in these inserts that was brought up to them over and over and over again as they repealed our last recourse to not take some of these products for our children. Because adults aren't mandated this. You have options. You have opt-outs. And we obviously saw that adults do not want to be mandated to take these products. Because it was struck down. And people who are so upset about Trump, but you can't see how awful it was that Biden mandated these products to people and told restaurants and public facilities and places that you could be denied entry there. People are being denied heart transplants, kidney transplants, liver transplants for not having these COVID jabs. Those are being fought at this point. This is insane. So here we are with the Gardasil 9. So all these inserts are laid out the same. You're going to get basically the warnings and precautions. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. I just want to show you that, yes, in fact, we go to 6.1. Where the heck is the 6? So adverse reactions. This is where the clinical trials are and the post-marketing experiences. This is where you're going to find a lot of information. It's worth reading through the whole thing. Make yourself a cup of tea and sit down and read through these things. There's a whole bunch of interesting information that we should all know when these products are being foisted upon our children or on ourselves. So we go to 6.1 and we're going to look up, and there's going to be encephalitis in here. So look at these clinical trials. This is a lot to look over, and Bobby Kennedy has done a fantastic job breaking all this down. In fact, in my Substack, I have an article where he did a presentation. It was like a 7-minute video where he talks about negative efficacy. He breaks down the clinical trials, gets really deep into the clinical trials and stuff like that. So where we're going to go down is to the post-marketing experience, because that's where we're going to see what the clinical trials produce, what the adverse events are. Now, they're not putting this in here because for the kindness of their heart. They're putting it in here because they have to. So they have to put the post-marketing data in here and these different things. They have to get their licensure from the FDA. So severe adverse events were collected throughout the entire study. And it starts to give you a list of them. Let's see if we can just find that list over here. Hold on a second as I scroll down. So here it is. It's in section 6.2. The post-marketing adverse experience reported voluntarily from the population, blah, blah, they all say the same thing. And so here it is for Gardasil. And then you're going to see that they have this, the encephalopathy in here. The spontaneous reported about lymphatic system disorders, autoimmune, anemia, idiopathic, thrombopienic purpura, lymphodenopathy. I can't even say half these things. Medicinal disorders, pulmonary embolus, general disorders and administration and conditions, asthenia, chills, death. There it is. Death. Post-marketing experience to the Gardasil vaccine. Death. It's not even funny. It's pathetic. It's like a dark, weird clown world that we're living in. There it is. Death. Malaise, immune system disorders, autoimmune diseases, hypersensitivity reactions, including anaphylactoid reactions, bronchospasms, multiskeletal and connective tissue disorders, agrathia, myalgia, neuron disease, paralysis, seizures, transverse myelitis, which is paralysis, neuron disease, infections and infestations, cellulitis, that'll kill you, vascular disorders, and deep venous thrombosis. So one more thing I want to share with you before I go. There's a lot to talk about, and we're going to be talking a lot about vaccines. I'm going to be talking about it all the time, because things need to change, and we need to keep the pressure on, and we need to look at these package inserts, and we need to discuss them, and we need to know and understand about the risk, the benefit ratio in a real way, called informed consent. That's not conspiracy theory. That's not anti-vaxxer. What would anyone have to gain trying to butt in someone else's personal medical choices? It's not my business what other families do. It is my business when the government is doing things to the people. That's my business. So what other people do is other people's business. Can we live in that world again? And the government butt out? Because the government has made it abysmal failure. Back to those statistics again. 1 in 36 has autism. That's not me saying it. That's the CDC. You can look it up yourself. So the government is a failure. Here we are all this time with all this technology. And we don't know what causes autism. But you can't say vaccines don't, because the science isn't there to say that. We need to look at all the factors. It's a combination of environmental toxins coming from various different places. I believe including vaccines. And there's lots of science that says that there's reason to look here. But I also believe it's in our environment, in the pesticides, in the chemicals, and all over the place. So we really need a lot of cleaning up to do. So anyway, I wanted to share one last thing with you. And this is this article right here. Where did it go? As I pull this up to here, that's the FDA. Where did that article go? Let me see. Oh, hold on a second. As I grab that out of my notes, I apologize. Live in real time. I really want to share this article with you. Because this was in, hopefully I put it here. Christopher Bunch. Oh, the jury trial. Here it is. Let's see. This comes out of Fortune magazine. Right. So here we go. All right. Let me switch you. All right. So here it is. Merck's $8 billion cancer vaccine faces first U.S. jury trial. This is huge. that even Fortune's covering it too. So this is a big deal. This isn't like, oh, little innocent Merck that Elizabeth Warren all of a sudden decides she's stumping for Merck. Not you, not the citizens, not our children. No, she's defending Merck, saying trying to make Bobby Kennedy swear he's never going to try and sue vaccine manufacturers again because poor Merck, there's no money in vaccines. Well, how come they got its $8 billion cancer vaccine? There's a tremendous amount of money in vaccines, especially when you have a captured market with mandates that the government mandates. The government both buys and mandates these shots. Isn't that a problem? So here we go. We're not going to read the whole article. We'll just take a little peek at it. Merck & Co. is facing the first jury trial over claims the company wrongfully marketed its lucrative... Oh, well, they don't make no money, those poor baby vaccine poor Merck. You ever look up how much money Merck is worth? You ever look how much money their vaccines make? Billions! So their lucrative Gardasil cancer vaccine is safe in the latest high-stakes litigation for the pharmaceutical giant. Because this isn't the first time on the merry-go-round with Merck, just remember Vioxx. And what gave us the opioid crisis? Oh, it was the pharmaceutical industry. Yeah, but we're just supposed to trust them like they had a come-to-Jesus moment when vaccines were put on the market. That they should have total indemnity to liability for faulty products that are injuring and hurting people. And even if it is rare, if what they say is true, which we know it's not just by the numbers alone that we are seeing with the worst chronic health conditions in our children that we've seen in generations. But no, it's rare. It's rare. So if it is rare, right, just like let's entertain that argument for a minute. So people who pride themselves on diversity, so for the person who it's rare for their child to be negatively affected, it sucks to be you, it takes a few eggs to make an omelet, so better do it for the greater herd. I'm not a cow, I ain't a part of a herd. I'm not going for that. So lawyers for the Los Angeles woman will argue Monday that the second largest U.S. drug maker by revenue, misled consumers by overstating the benefits of the HPV vaccine and downplaying its risks. The shot is given to prevent human papillomavirus, whose researchers have tied to cervical cancers. And you guys can read that article that's in the Fortune magazine. I'm not going to get into the whole thing. I want to play you a mom's testimony instead. So this is the mother of the case that really shot this to the forefront of Bango. And this is a pivotal case. We don't have to listen to her whole testimony. It's only about 3 minutes, but let's take a little listen. This is a mom of a child who was injured. Let's listen to her story.
So Roby, I'm a lifelong Californian and I live in Pasadena, California. I'm here representing my family. I oppose AB 659. My daughter Jennifer suffered a severe adverse reaction to the cervical cancer vaccine Gardasil as a teenager. The HPV vaccine caused debilitating and devastating injuries. My daughter was a high school athlete and honor student and had to drop out of school and has been disabled for over a decade. Jennifer has been bedbound and wheelchair-bound for extended periods of time. The Gardasil vaccine has destroyed my daughter's life and devastated our family. The cervical cancer vaccine Gardasil has been grossly mismarketed by its pharmaceutical manufacturer Merck. Merck has oversold the efficacy of the vaccine and concealed safety risks. The Gardasil vaccine, in addition to being dangerous, is also misleading. The best way to prevent cervical cancer is the Pap smear. Cervical cancer mortality rates in the United States has been at a steady decline for decades due to the widespread use of Pap screenings. Merck's own literature states that the cervical cancer vaccine does not remove the need for cervical cancer screening, does not treat HPV infection, does not protect against pre-existing HPV infections, does not protect against HPV strains not covered by the vaccine, and may not fully protect each person who gets the vaccine. It is an expensive and optional add-on treatment. It is important that the public is aware that the best way to prevent cervical cancer is the Pap smear. AB 659, as it currently stands, uses language that is deceptive and intentionally misleading and would lead the average Californian to believe that the state is mandating cervical cancer vaccination for 8th grade through college students. The words expected and public policy of the state are coercive, and the bill needs to make clear that the vaccine is only a recommendation and not a mandate. It needs to be expressly stated that students will not be denied access to education if they choose not to get the cervical cancer vaccine. I would hate for another family to have to live through the nightmare my family has had to endure, or have their children denied their right to an education because they lack medical literacy. I believe it is inappropriate for the state to be recommending a vaccine with serious side effects for school-age students because the HPV vaccine is designed to treat a sexually transmitted virus. Students are not at risk of developing HPV in the classroom setting. HPV, once transmitted, does not turn into cervical cancer overnight. If the disease progresses, it takes years to develop, and the age group being targeted by this bill is not at risk for cervical cancer. I would like to know that there are currently hundreds of lawsuits in the United States, including in California, against Merck for serious injuries caused by Gardasil. I strongly urge you to vote no on AB 659. The vaccine is dangerous, it is being intentionally mismarketed, and it is guaranteed to injure innocent Californians. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others in opposition, just your name, organization if you represent one, and position on the bill.
That was the mom of a child who was injured, who is now bedbound because of that. So, you know, informed consent is a human right. And one last thing before I take off out of here, I just want to play you this video and show you a couple more things that I've collected over the years in the MAHA
I see you
movement.
stepping to the podium right now,
Yikes.
Pam Bondi, so we're going to switch right back to that event in our nation's capital. Let's listen in.
I don't want this right now. Hold on a second.
And I'm
okay. Sorry about that. Live in real time. Okay. So one last thing here. A few things before I sign off here. So, let me just go into your. So I wanted to play this exchange with Elizabeth Warren. Hold on here. I wanted to play this exchange with Elizabeth Warren and Bobby Kennedy during his hearing confirmation, and in another exchange that she had outside, which is really shocking to me because she's not representing her constituents. She is representing, she's defending industry, which I always thought she was fighting for the people. At least when I thought I liked her. I did. I liked her years ago, but I don't anymore. I don't appreciate her, and her rhetoric is just really just out of control. So let's take a look at this. Here we go.
You have said you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies.
Mike,
yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Well, look.
Vaccine
You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies.
Hold on.
Yeah, you are.
Hold on. I unfortunately, that particular, I like the whole exchange, but let's listen to her go outside because I'm running way over time here. Let's take a listen to her here, what she says to the press outside after the hearing. Hold on.
He says he won't go to work for drug. His answers are continue to make money off his anti-vax position. Look, he says he won't go to work for drug companies because the American people have a right to know that the decisions made while he is Secretary of HHS are only for the good of the American people. And yet, he wants to keep a piece of the action on every one of these anti-vax lawsuits. And what that means potentially is as Secretary of HHS, he can make those lawsuits a whole lot more profitable. In fact, he may have the opportunity to bankrupt the vaccine manufacturers, and then nobody gets vaccine.
Are you worried that he's in the position to serve his own interest?
That is the problem. He has said he will protect his right to make money off the position of Secretary of HHS. that means that every decision he makes could be for the American people or could be just to benefit RFK Jr.
Do you think any of the points you're making are resonating with your Republican colleagues? Can you get your name? Brennan, NBC.
Because the American people have a right to know that the decisions made while he is Secretary.
Oh my word. Unbelievable. There's Elizabeth Warren. Always gonna bankrupt poor innocent Mark. First of all, it's not about the money. Yeah, as a lawyer, you're going to get paid for your work. Anyone should. There's nothing wrong with that. God bless Bobby Kennedy for suing Merck. They deserve to be sued. They made a terrible product that's injuring and hurting people. How many mothers have to share these awful stories of this actually happening? So on that note, a few last things that I want to share. What she calls anti-vaxxers. Let's take a look at these beautiful and these courageous moms who fought so hard. And finally, we have this moment where we have the floor. Okay? Now is the time to remain very active and continue to have this conversation, continue to talk about all these things that are affecting the lives of our children, the future of our country, the future of our civilization. Moms, you are incredible. It's so amazing to be alive in this moment, to look at the amazing things that moms and dads, of course, but really, in my own experience, being out in the trenches of this battle is just the courageous, incredible moms. So I wanted to share with you some scenes and photos that I picked up along the way that I really love. This is New York. What's interesting about these photos, this is New York, Albany, New York, up at the Capitol after New York, the summer that New York lost the vaccine exemption, lost the religious exemption to vaccines. This is like after Hochul, is it? Or, I'm sorry, it was what's the guy's name? Cuomo. Cuomo was governor at that point. This is 2020, just before COVID breaks out, and so people are very upset because the religious exemption has been rescinded and people are protesting Cuomo's State of the State. And so this is where these pictures are from. And it's absolutely amazing that some of these that I captured that I just love and I want to share with you, because these women are quite amazing. And here, let me pull this over here. Hold on a second. Here we go. I just love these. These are great. These are absolutely great. So there you go. You've got the moms against the state troopers. And here's one more that I really want. This was the mom in the video that I previously shared. And that's powerful. So every time they were referring to these anti-vaxxers and saying they're just disparaging a group of people who are standing up for the freedom of choice. The freedom you can't mandate medical procedures. You can't do that. Civilized people don't do that to their society. We don't mandate products from pharmaceutical companies and then decide to create pejoratives to discredit their arguments against being mandated to do anything. And hey, YouTube, I'd love to sue YouTube if you take my stuff down again. I'm hoping things are going to change where the censorship is going to stop, because these conversations need to be had, and we need to talk about all of it. So on that note, I'm done. Stay warm, stay warm in the coming snow, if you're getting snow, wherever you are. And till we meet again, adios.